Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. And now that we're here in the month of July, and we're all just waiting for things to happen, we're a few weeks away from training camp and the mock game, about a month away from the preseason, about 2 months away from the start of the regular season, and we all kind of know what kind of team we got. We know who's on our team, and for a decent chunk of the players and the most important players, we got a pretty good idea of what they can do. There isn't a lot of mystery left at this point. Obviously, you still want to see how the team plays in the preseason a little bit, but you also know that can easily not be indicative of anything. It was not last year for the Seahawks. You want to see the mock game maybe, but that could definitely not be indicative. The point is, you have a pretty good idea of who's going to be on the team when the season starts. And of the players who are still a bit of a mystery box, which is mostly rookies, those are typically not going to be the most important players on your team. The teams out there that have mystery are the teams that have cap space to make a trade or to make a signing that could change their team even at this late point in the offseason. They're teams that have rookie quarterbacks starting. Maybe there are a couple of non-quarterback rookies out there that are so good they could change the fate of their team even as rookies, guys like Will Anderson, maybe Bijan. But for the most part, teams kind of know what's going on at this point. So with that in mind, I think it's time to start putting it on the line here and try to make some predictions. So over the next month, I'm going to go through the Seahawks roster, look at the various positions, and try to offer up some reasoned predictions on what kind of performance and what kinds of numbers we can expect from them in the 2023 season. So I'm going to try to reason through everything here. I'm going to try to explain where I'm coming from with these numbers. Now, keep in mind that these are just box score numbers. There are complexities to a football player's performance that are not captured by these numbers. Geno Smith, I'm going to show you my predicted stat line for him this year in a few minutes. Geno Smith could have those numbers and still be a pretty mediocre quarterback. He could have those numbers and be the best quarterback in the league. Context matters. Timing matters. When he's doing his good performances in a game matters. Is it coming early? Is it coming late? Is he constantly trying to lead big comebacks? You get the idea. So understand that these box score numbers are only providing a pretty small part of the picture here. This is, I mean, the box score has kind of become a thing for fantasy football players more than, I think, actual football watchers. And most of us have enough experience watching football to know that a box score can tell you a pretty big lie sometimes. So understand that this is not necessarily indicative of how good I think Geno Smith will play. However, I can say this, I have very high expectations for this offense, and I have very high expectations for Geno Smith this year, and those numbers and these numbers that you will see here do reflect that. So let's take a look here. I'm going to start revealing some of these numbers. And then, by the way, at the end, we'll also do Drew Lock just for fun because he's on the team and he may very well get a chance to play at some point. So let's start with completions for Geno Smith. My prediction for Geno Smith's completions in 2023 are an even 400, which is one more than he had in 2022. He had 399 in 2022. So I'm predicting one more completion. His attempts, on the other hand, I think are going to go down a little bit. I have 548. The way I see it, you look at the Seahawks, they should have a better run game this year. Last year, the run game wasn't bad, but Penny got hurt early and ended up not doing all that much. And K9 missed some time and played injured at some points. There were a few games last year where we were down to basically Tony Jones and a one-legged Travis Homer at our running back spots. That shouldn't happen again. Obviously, running backs are going to get hurt. Running backs get hurt every day in the NFL, or every game, I should say. It's kind of a rite of passage. Running backs don't really play 17 games almost ever anymore. However, I do believe we are better equipped to deal with running back injuries this year, and we are unlikely to have as severe a running back injury problem this year as we did last year. Like, you will probably see K9 miss a few games, but we now have a more qualified backup as opposed to somebody like Penny, who was completely unavailable for the last, 12 games of the year. So therefore, I think we're going to be able to run the ball better, so that means less attempts for Geno, and also beyond that, I think our defense will be at least a little bit better, which should relieve the need for Geno to keep chucking the ball around late in these super high scoring games. So completions stay about the same, attempts go down a little bit. You do the math there, and you can see what I'm going to be doing with the completion percentage here. I'm going to give you guys a second to process that because, yeah, that's a pretty bold proclamation. 73%. And people are definitely going to tell me that that's not realistic because that would be one of the best completion percentage seasons in NFL history. It would be top 5 pretty easily. But sitting here, looking at what Geno did last year when he completed about 70% of his passes, by the way, led the league in completion percentage. It was like 69.8 or something. So basically 70%. Looking at what he was dealing with last year, he was dealing with good receivers with no depth. He was dealing with a running game that quite often just kind of disappeared on him because everybody got hurt. Like I said, there were a couple games there where we almost didn't have a running back because everybody got hurt, and had to deal with a number 3 receiver that got hurt like 3 separate times and eventually missed the last, 3 or 4 games, and was not reliable, although he played quite well when he was on the field. And then I look at what we're getting this year, what he's working with. He is working with a better offensive line. It pretty much has to be better. I'm going to continue to die on that hill. And I'm looking at the receivers. You have replaced Goodwin, who played well last year. I liked Goodwin, but you have replaced him with one of the most hyped slot receivers in recent history in JSN. And JSN, his whole game is, I'm going to get open quickly and I'm going to make catches on third down to move the chains. That is JSN's whole thing. That's basically what he lives to do. And you compare that to the fact that the Seahawks were not a very good team on third down last year. They were below average in third down conversion. And you brought in JSN to improve that. And you also should be getting much better production catching passes out of the backfield from your running backs compared to last year when that was actually pretty low. And I don't know how I can justify saying anything other than this. I can't. I'm saying it's going to go up by 3%. His completion percentage goes up by 3% when there's going to be less pressure on him, when he's going to have better receivers. Remember, Metcalf might get a little bit better. He is not in his prime yet. And he's also going to have more check down options because of the additions of Charbonnet and possibly McIntosh. And the big one, JSN. For me to sit here and say, I think Geno Smith's completion percentage will get worse, I can't justify that unless I were to say, I think last year was a fluke, which I don't. Or I would say, oh, he got paid, so he's not going to try hard anymore, which I definitely don't believe that. So just logically speaking, I have to say I think it goes up. So that's a little bit crazy, but this offense, at least at the skill position level, is pretty loaded. And even the things on this offense that aren't great are better than they were last year. Pretty much, I can't... If anybody tries to argue pretty much any overall aspect of this team is the same or worse than it was last year, except for tight end, which is literally the same, I would say I don't know how you're arriving at that conclusion. That doesn't match up to me. Like I can't justify that. Anyway, yards. I do have the yards going up a little bit here. 4,733, and that's obviously another bold one. But, again, I look at what Geno did last year. I look at what he is now working with in terms of now getting to play with JSN instead of Marquise Goodwin when he's healthy, and then having to deal with guys like Dwayne Eskridge and Laquan Treadwell whenever Marquise Goodwin isn't healthy. And I believe that is a significant upgrade. I believe that the offense will be staying on the field more because it's hard for us to not get better on third down. Like if we're not a better third down team in 2023 than we were in 2022, that would be confounding given what we have done to improve the team and how the ways in which the team should naturally improve. So 4,733 yards. Touchdowns, I don't believe touchdowns will be radically different. I said 34. Last year it was 30. Again, that's not really Geno doing much different, but it's a product of Geno just having better things to work with. Interceptions, I do think that Geno Smith will continue to turn the ball over a little more than we would like. I do believe that he does just have a handful of those not good, dangerous, pointless throws in him. So I do think he's going to get to double-digit interceptions. He had 11 last year, so this would be an improvement. Now, a lot of people have pointed out that Geno Smith had like the second most turnover-worthy throws last year, and a lot of the interceptions got dropped. And I understand that. But I think a big reason why he threw a lot of interceptable passes last year was because the defense was bad and he had to keep scoring. The running game, he basically had no running game in a few of those games. Like when you look to your left and you've got Tony Jones as your lead running back and you've got Travis Homer on one leg as your backup running back, you're just going to have to throw the ball every play and you're going to have to take chances because you need to get those touchdowns because you're chasing points constantly because you know your defense is no good. So with a better defense, and I don't know if our defense will be great this year, but I think it will be better offensive line and better receivers, I do think that situation gets better. But I think some of those bad throws will continue to exist, and he'll still get to double-digit interceptions. I don't think it'll be anything crippling, though, because you put all these numbers in the blender, and you come out with a QB rating of 112, which would be right up there with the league leaders in all likelihood. It would be good enough to lead the league some seasons in recent memory. I don't think it'll lead the league this year. I think there will be a couple quarterbacks out there that have a higher QB rating than this. But Geno Smith's QB rating last year was about 100. And basically what I'm saying here is you add JSN, you add a better offensive line. And again, I'm going to continue to stress this, just using common sense, it's pretty much impossible for our offensive line to not be better. Improve the running back situation. How is it... Like I understand what I'm saying here, that I'm saying that Geno Smith's going to put up numbers that are among the best in the league for any quarterback. He's going to put up not quite Aaron Rodgers numbers, but very close. He's not quite Joe Burrow numbers, but close. But why it doesn't seem ridiculous to me to say he's going to improve in these ways when he's given these additional benefits. Like, I think that Geno Smith is by and large a product of his environment, but the environment around him has improved. So why would his play not improve? His QB rating went up here by about 12 points. I gave him a slightly higher completion percentage, a few hundred more yards, a couple more touchdowns, and I don't see any of that being especially ridiculous. I can't really justify doing anything else. I just can't. Just logically speaking, in order for me to justify saying that I think Geno has a worse year this year, it would have to be me saying last year was a fluke, and I don't believe that. As for sacks, the offensive line, like I said, pretty much has to get better, and Geno should have another year of comfort in the offense. I think that goes down a little bit. It's still somewhat high. I think Geno might be a quarterback who is a little more prone to take a sack than the average, but I do think it goes down to 38, which is something that I think pretty reasonable to live with. And that's it. I mean, that's obviously an incredible season. That would be one of the best seasons any Seahawks quarterback has ever had. It might even be good enough to get legitimate MVP votes. But again, I don't see why this is anything absurd to imagine when the situation around Geno should be so much better this year. And as for Drew Lock, I don't have much. I think he plays a little bit in garbage time this year. 3 completions on 4 attempts, 29 yards. That's really about it. Hands the ball off a lot in garbage time. You guys know the drill. Those are my Geno predictions right now. Let me know what yours are. Let me know what you think of mine. See you guys later. Go Hawks.